They say every joke holds a little bit of truth, but when my fiance's friends joked that he had a backup fiancé, that little bit of truth wasn't just a kernel. It was a bomb. It blew up my world, my future, and everything I thought I knew about the man I was supposed to marry. This is the story of how one single throwaway comment at a Saturday barbecue turned my wedding planning into a full-blown investigation. It asks how I found out I might not be the only woman he was planning a future with, and how I stumbled into the bizarre, heartbreaking world of backup partners. A world that, I would soon find out, is way more common than any of us want to believe. If you've ever had that sick gut feeling that something is just off, you know what I'm talking about. Stick around, because this story might just validate every single instinct you've ever had. And hey, if you want more stories about navigating the absolute chaos of modern relationships, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You are going to want to be here for this. Before my life felt like a true crime podcast, it was a total rom-com. You know, the kind you watch on a rainy Sunday and think, nobody's life is actually like that. My fiancé, Mark, and I, we had that kind of love, or so I thought. We met in our mid-20s at a ridiculously loud concert. We basically had to scream our life stories at each other over the bass. He had this laugh that made you want to be funnier just to hear it again. He was a civil engineer, grounded, practical, the perfect balance to my chaotic graphic designer brain. He built bridges, and I colored in the world. It felt poetic, you know? Our first year was a highlight reel of firsts. Our first trip was a spontaneous weekend in a cabin upstate. The first "I love you" was whispered in the dark after a dumb argument over what movie to watch. First time meeting the parents went so well my mom was calling him her son-in-law by dessert. He was thoughtful in ways both big and small. He'd remember a random comment I made about wanting to try a bakery and show up with croissants on a Tuesday morning. He would actually listen when I'd ramble about client feedback or a new font I was obsessed with. He made me feel seen, cherished, and completely secure. When he proposed after 3 years, it was a scene straight out of a movie. We were on a hike, the same trail we walked on one of our first dates. At the summit, with the sky all oranges and purples, he got down on one knee. He held out this simple, elegant ring I'd pointed out months ago and totally forgotten about. But he hadn't forgotten. He never forgot the little things. Through my happy tears, I said yes. Obviously. Walking back down that mountain, I felt like I was floating. My future was set. It was this beautiful, solid thing, designed by a man who literally designed structures for a living. The irony was not lost on me. Then came the wedding planning. And oh my God, the wedding planning. Went all in. I had a binder, a huge, white, 3-ring binder that basically became a part of my body. It was overflowing with fabric swatches, contracts, and seating charts I'd rearrange at 2 a.m. Mark was supportive, if a little baffled by my intensity. "Whatever makes you happy, babe," he'd say, kissing my head while I was frantically comparing 50 shades of ivory. "As long as you're at the end of the aisle, that's all that matters." We booked a gorgeous old barn with fairy lights and ancient oak trees. I found the dress a classic A-line with lace sleeves that made me cry the second I put it on. We agonized over the guest list, which is its own special kind of hell. And a big part of that guest list was his friends. Mark had this tight-knit group of 3 best friends from college: Dave, Ben, and Kevin. They were a unit. They had a decade of inside jokes and a shared history I could never really penetrate. I liked them, mostly. They were funny, super loyal to Mark, and always included me. But I always felt like the new kid in school. When they were all together, they'd revert back to their 20-year-old selves, and I was just there. The wives and girlfriends would all share these knowing glances at barbecues. We were in the club, but not the founding members club. I just accepted it. That was their bond. I had mine with Mark. and that is all that mattered. Our world was perfect. Our home was filled with laughter. We had a wedding date circled on our calendar. Our future was so bright and shiny I felt like I could touch it. My binder was getting thicker. The deposits were paid. The save the dates were mailed. Everything was falling into place. Everything was secure. Until it wasn't. The day it all fell apart was painfully, beautifully normal. A perfect Saturday in late June, the air smelling like fresh-cut grass and charcoal. We were at Dave's house for one of their usual barbecues. Dave, the loud one, the group's unofficial leader, was at the grill with a beer in one hand and tongs in the other. I was sitting at a picnic table with Mark, my head on his shoulder, just soaking it all in. We were debating honeymoon spots, Thailand or Italy. It was one of those wonderful, privileged problems to have. Dave brought over a platter of burgers, and everyone crowded around. The conversation was easy: sports, work, another story about a college party ID already heard 100 times. I was just smiling, feeling the sun on my skin and Mark's arm around me. And then, somehow, the conversation turned to us. "Man, I still can't believe you're tying him down," Kevin said, giving me a playful nudge. "We thought he'd be a bachelor forever." I laughed. "I guess I have my charms." "You must," Dave chimed in, his voice a little too loud, a few beers deep. "Because you beat out Sarah for the top spot." Silence. It was only a second or two, but it was the kind of silence that is so heavy it feels like it is sucking all the air out of the yard. My smile just froze. "Sarah?" I asked. My voice sounded weird and far away. Ben, the peacemaker, shot Dave a look that could kill. "Dude, what are you talking about?" But Dave was on a roll, completely oblivious to the bomb he'd just detonated. He let out this huge laugh. "Oh, come on. You all know. The backup. Mark's backup fiancé." He gestured at me with his beer, sloshing some on the ground. "If this one ever messed up," he said, winking at me, "he always had Sarah in his back pocket. Good old reliable Sarah." The world just tilted. My heart went from a lazy summer beat to a jackhammer in my ribs. I tried to laugh, but this strangled, squeaky sound came out. It was pure panic pretending to be amusement. I looked at Mark. His face was pure thunder. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring daggers at Dave. "Shut up, Dave," Mark hissed. "You're drunk." "I'm just kidding, man. It was a joke," Dave said, finally picking up on the vibe shift. He looked at me, his eyes suddenly wide and way too sober. "Just a stupid joke. We used to tease him about it like years ago. It is not real." Ben and Kevin were frantically trying to change the subject, but it was too late. The words were just hanging there in the air, shimmering with poison. Backup fiancé. Good old reliable Sarah. Mark grabbed my hand. It was cold and clammy. "He's an idiot, okay? Don't listen to him," he whispered, finally looking at me. "It's not true. There is no backup. There's only you." I just nodded. I couldn't speak. I let him pull me up from the table while we made some lame excuse to leave. A sudden headache. A project I forgot about. Anything. The drive home was silent and suffocating. Mark just kept repeating it like a mantra. "He's just an idiot, babe. It was a stupid, meaningless joke." And I just kept nodding, staring out the window, with the words echoing in my head. "It's a joke. It's a joke." But they say every joke has a kernel of truth. And deep in my stomach, a cold, hard feeling started to grow. That kernel was real, and it had just been planted right in the foundation of my perfect life. The next few days were an exercise in lying to myself. I desperately wanted to believe Mark, to just write off Davius' comment as a drunken mistake. So on the surface, I did. I told Mark I believed him, that Dave was just being Dave and that it was forgotten. We went back to normal, or at least, we pretended to. But something was broken. The comment wasn't gone. It was living in my head, rent-free, replaying on a loop at 3 a.m. Who the hell was Sarah? In 3 years, Mark had never mentioned that name. Not once. And that was the first thread I started to pull. If she was so important that she was part of an inside joke with his best friends, why had I never, ever heard of her? I started watching him. I hated myself for it. I felt like a spy in my own house. But I couldn't stop. That little seed of doubt was growing into a full-blown forest of paranoia. It started with his phone. Before, his phone was just a phone. It would lie on the coffee table, screen up, and I never cared. Now it was like a state secret, always in his pocket or face down on the counter. When a text came in, he'd subtly angle his body away from me to read it. It was a tiny shift, but I saw it, every single time. One night we were watching a movie. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and this weird, unreadable look flashed across his face before he quickly flipped it over. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to sound breezy. "Just work," he said, not taking his eyes off the TV. "Ben, asking about the Henderson project." But I saw the name on the notification for a split second. It wasn't Ben. It started with an S. My blood ran cold. The next day, while he was in the shower, I did something I swore I would never do. I picked up his phone. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely type in the passcode our anniversary. Of course, my heart was pounding with guilt and a desperate, sick need to know. I went to his messages and scrolled. I was looking for Sarah. And there she was. The chat history wasn't a smoking gun. It was friendly. Way too friendly. There were inside jokes I didn't get. Mentions of people and places I'd never heard of. He'd sent her a picture of a dog we saw on our walk that morning. "Saw this guy today and thought of Buster," he wrote. Who was Buster? I kept scrolling, my stomach twisting. The texting was consistent, almost daily. Check-ins, memes, links. The kind of easy, constant chatter you have with a best friend. A best friend he had never told me about. Then I saw it. A text from him, sent the week before the barbecue. "Wedding planning is driving me insane. Some days I just want to run for the hills." Her reply, "The hills are always here for you. You know that." I thought I was going to throw up. It wasn't a love confession, but it was an intimacy, a shared secret. A door being held open for him. He was complaining about our future to her, and she was offering him an escape. I put the phone down, my mind racing. I went to his social media. I searched Sarah in his friends list. One profile stood out. Her profile picture was with a golden retriever. Buster, I guessed. I clicked, and my world shattered all over again. Her old photos were a highlight reel of Mark's past, pictures of them together from 5, 6, 7 years ago. At parties, on trips, kissing. One photo of them wrapped in each other's arms was captioned, "3 years with my favorite person." She was the ex-girlfriend, the one before me. He'd told me about a big college relationship, but he was always vague, never used her name, and made it sound like it was ancient history. He definitely never told me they were still talking. Every single day. That night, I decided to confront him, but not about the phone. I couldn't admit that. "Hey," I said, my voice shaking a little. "I know we talked about it, but what Dave said is still bugging me. Who is Sarah?" His reaction was instant. His face hardened. "Are we seriously still on this? I told you it was a stupid joke." "I know. But they all knew her. You were with her for a long time, right?" I was fishing, using what I'd found. He looked shocked that I knew. Yeah, so? We dated years ago. It's over. Are you still friends with her? I asked, my heart pounding. Yes, we're friends. It's not a big deal. You're being paranoid. You're letting one dumb comment from a drunk idiot get in your head and ruin this. And there it was. Gaslighting. He was turning it all around on me. I was the crazy one. I was the problem. It is not paranoid to ask about someone your friends called your backup fiancé, Mark. It is not paranoid to wonder why you never mentioned her name to me in 3 years. Because it didn't matter. It's the past. You're the one I'm marrying, he yelled. He was so angry, so indignant, that I almost, for a split second, believed him. I almost apologized. But I didn't. I couldn't sleep that night. His defensiveness wasn't the reaction of someone with nothing to hide. It was the reaction of someone who got caught. I went to my laptop and fell down a rabbit hole. Fiancé still friends with ex. Emotional cheating. Partner has secret friend. That's when I found the terms. First, I read about cushioning, when someone in a relationship keeps potential romantic options on the back burner to cushion a potential breakup. They aren't necessarily cheating, but they're building a safety net. The secret texting, the emotional intimacy, it was all there. Then I found the term that hit me like a physical blow: backup partner. It's often an ex or a trusted friend you keep in your orbit as a replacement just in case. And what I found next floored me. While some studies suggest around half of women may have a backup in mind, research by experts like Jason Dibble and Michelle Drouin has explored this behavior in both men and women, noting it's a way to keep options open. Men and women are apparently equally likely to keep people on the back burner. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't crazy. I was a statistic. I kept digging. The articles explained that people do this out of insecurity, a fear of being alone. When their main relationship feels shaky, they turn to the backup who feels safe and reliable. Sarah was his history, his safety net, his insurance policy. He had one foot out the door, and that door led straight to her. The feeling of being his one and only choice was a complete illusion. He was with me, but he was making damn sure he would never be alone. Reading all this was validating and horrifying. The hills are always here for you text was a classic example. It all finally had a name. The joke wasn't a joke. It was a confession. I wasn't just planning a wedding anymore. I was living with a man who was actively cushioning his relationship with me, using his ex-girlfriend as the pillow. The truth festered inside me for another week. Every "I love you" felt hollow. Every touch felt like a lie. The not knowing for sure was eating me alive. I needed a confession. I needed something he couldn't gaslight his way out of. The final straw came on a Wednesday night. He'd fallen asleep on the couch, his phone lying on his chest. It felt like a test from the universe. I picked it up, my hands steady with a cold, grim purpose. Guilt was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. I went straight to his texts with Sarah. I scrolled up to see what he'd said after our fight, and there it was. A wall of text from him. It read, "We had a huge fight about you last night. She knows we're friends and she's losing it. I don't know what to do. This whole wedding thing, it is so much pressure. Sometimes I feel like we want different things. You always just got me, you know? It was just easier with you." My breath caught in my throat. He was painting me as the crazy one while reminiscing about how easy things were with her. He was actively undermining our relationship. Her reply was even worse. "I told you that you were rushing into things. I'm always here if you need to talk. Or if you need more than that." The invitation was so clear. She wasn't just leaving a door unlocked. She was holding it wide open for him. A strange, terrible clarity washed over me. This was it. I walked into our bedroom, turned on the light, and put the phone on the bed. Then I went back and gently shook him awake. "Mark, Wake up. He stirred, blinking. What's wrong, babe? It's late. We need to talk, I said. My voice was eerily calm. He followed me into the bedroom. He saw his phone on the bed, and his face changed. The sleepiness vanished, replaced by pure panic. He knew. I read them, I said, my voice flat. The texts. With Sarah. He just stared at me, speechless. The color drained from his face. No anger this time, no defensiveness. Just the silent terror of being caught. So I want you to tell me, I continued, the words spilling out in a controlled rage. I want you to tell me what Dave meant by backup fiancé, and I don't want a joke, and I don't want you to tell me I'm paranoid. I want the truth, because I have it right here. I pointed to the phone. I just want to hear it from you. He sank onto the bed and put his head in his hands. When he finally looked up, his eyes were full of tears. I'm so sorry, he whispered. It was pathetic. Don't be sorry, I said, my voice hard. Be honest. For once. And he was. The whole sordid story came tumbling out. He admitted he'd never really cut the cord with Sarah. He loved me, he insisted. He wanted to marry me. But he was scared. Scared of commitment, scared of failure, scared of being alone if we didn't work out. I didn't think of her as a backup fiancé, he sobbed. That's just Dave's stupid name for it. But she was my safety net. Yes, she was my safety net. He admitted he liked the validation she gave him. When we fought or wedding planning got stressful, he'd run to her. She made him feel secure. The irony was suffocating. He was destroying my security to prop up his own. I was cushioning, he said, using the exact word I'd found. He'd heard it before. I knew it was wrong, but I told myself it wasn't cheating because it wasn't physical. A friend? I shot back, my voice finally breaking with a week's worth of fury. A friend you lied to me about for 3 years? A friend you complained to about me? A friend who offers you more than talk? That's not a friend, Mark. That's an understudy. You gave me the starring role but had her waiting in the wings the whole time, just in case I wasn't good enough. He had no answer for that. He just sat there, crying. A man who tried to have it all and was now about to lose everything. He wanted relationship insurance, but commitment doesn't come with an insurance policy. It requires faith. It requires jumping without a net. He didn't just use a net, he hid it from me and lied about it. I looked at the man I was supposed to spend my life with, and I felt nothing. Just a profound, aching emptiness, and a quiet, unshakable resolve. It's over, Mark, I said. The words came out so easily it surprised me. He looked up, his face a mask of disbelief. No, we can fix this. I'll delete her number, right now. We can go to counseling, please. Don't throw this all away. You already did, I said, my voice cold. You threw this away every time you sent her a text, every time you lied to my face. This, I said, gesturing at the life we had built, is not fixable. The foundation is broken. You built it with a secret escape hatch. There was nothing else to say. I packed a bag that night and went to my sister's. The next morning, the real nightmare began, dismantling our future. Calling my parents was the hardest part. My mom, who adored him, just kept crying and repeating, I don't understand. Explaining it to my friends, to my bridesmaids, was humiliating. Then came the vendors. I spent a whole day on the phone, saying the same thing over and over in a flat, robotic voice. I'm calling to cancel the wedding, the photographer, the caterer, the florist. Each call was a fresh stab of grief, a reminder of a dream that was now just a pile of broken contracts and lost deposits. The owner of that beautiful barn was kind, but the thousands of dollars we'd put down were gone. Just like my trust. Moving out of our apartment was surreal. We coordinated over text, like strangers. I went with my dad and my sister while Mark was out, packing up my life, my books, my clothes. The little things we'd bought together felt like excavating a tomb. Every object was tainted. I left almost everything behind. The hardest part was the wedding binder. It was still sitting on the desk. I picked it up, feeling its ridiculous weight in my hands, walked it over to the recycling bin, and just dropped it in. The thud it made sounded like a coffin lid, closing. In the weeks that followed, I lived in this weird space between pain and relief. Of course, my heart was broken, but underneath it all, a quiet sense of peace started to grow. The constant gnawing anxiety I'd been living with was gone. The knot in my stomach had finally loosened. I was no longer a detective in my own life. I was just alone. And as scary as that was, it was so much better than being insecurely partnered. It was clean, honest. Before I get to where I am now, I have to ask, have you ever been in a situation like this? Have you ever felt like you were plan A, but knew there was a plan B waiting in the wings? Or maybe you've been the backup without even realizing it. This stuff is so messy, and it happens in the dark. Tell me your story in the comments. I really think talking about this is the only way we can start to feel less alone in it. It's been a little over a year. The first few months were a blur of grief, rage, and an embarrassing amount of ice cream. But slowly, I started putting myself back together. I threw myself into my work, my friendships, and figuring out who I was without him. The biggest lesson I learned was about intuition. For weeks, I let Mark convince me that my gut feeling was just paranoia. I've learned that my gut isn't a crystal ball. It doesn't have all the answers, but it is a world-class alarm system. It screams at you that something is wrong, even if it can't tell you exactly what is wrong. I will never ignore that alarm again. I also learned that real love can't have a just-in-case clause. Real commitment is a leap of faith. It is choosing to jump with someone and trusting you'll figure it out together. It isn't wearing a secret parachute your partner doesn't know about. You deserve to be someone's one and only choice, not their preferred option. It is so much better to be happily single than to be in a relationship where you're constantly auditioning for a role you already have. Discovering the world of cushioning and backup partners was a painful but powerful validation. It proved that my experience wasn't some freak incident. It's a real, documented pattern of behavior, a symptom of fear and a lack of true commitment that's all too common in modern dating. Knowing that made me feel less like a victim and more like someone who had survived a very real, very common relationship hazard. I have no idea what happened with Mark and Sarah. After we broke up, I blocked him on everything. I chose to look forward, and there was no room for looking back. What I do know is that I am stronger now. I am wiser. And I have a much clearer understanding of what I want and what I will never, ever tolerate again. My security doesn't come from another person anymore. It comes from myself. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you're going through something like this, please know that you are not crazy and you are not alone. You deserve clarity, honesty, and a love that is all in. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more content about figuring all this stuff out together. I'll see you in the next one.